In 2025, the world produced over 2 million tons of honey, with a global market value of around $6.6 billion. China alone accounts for about 460,000 tons a year, meaning roughly 14 kilograms of honey enter global circulation every single second. But what most people don't realize is this. These mountains of golden liquid are created by insects weighing less than 0.1 grams, slowly built up drop by drop through their tongues and wings. A single bee lives only 6 to 8 weeks from the moment it emerges from its cocoon to the day it dies. In that short lifetime, it flies 50 to 100 kilometers, visits tens of thousands of flowers, and ultimately produces only about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey for humans. In other words, that single spoon of honey you spread on your toast may represent an entire lifetime of work from 12 bees. So the question is, how does this natural flower nectar, crafted by tiny insects one drop at a time, become a supermarket product labeled 100% pure honey? And how do humans organize the labor of hundreds of millions of bees into an industrial-scale production system? In today's Food Truth, we'll take you deep into this journey from hive to factory, to see how humans use industrial power to transform a natural biological process into a precise, efficient, and surprisingly sweet production machine. The story of honey begins with a queen bee, and you may not know this, but beekeepers are among the most selective breeders in all of agriculture on Earth. In a single beehive, the queen bee is the absolute core. Every one of the tens of thousands of bees in the hive is born from her. Her genetics directly determine the colony's honey production efficiency. That's why a smart beekeeper must cultivate their own queen bee. Each batch of queens goes through an extremely strict selection process. Beekeepers choose the strongest and most productive hive from their best-performing colonies. From that hive, they extract queen larvae and incubate them separately under artificial conditions. This incubation process takes about 10 to 16 days. During this period, the queen larvae are kept in a dedicated incubation chamber where both temperature and food are tightly controlled. They are fed exclusively royal jelly throughout the entire process to ensure optimal development. Once they hatch, the new queen is transferred into a new hive, beginning her life as the ruler of the colony. A healthy queen bee can lay up to 2,000 eggs per day. Her lifespan can reach 3 to 5 years, far longer than worker bees. This means a single queen can give rise to millions of worker bees over her lifetime. Choosing the right queen is essentially deciding the honey production of the next several years. When the honey reserves inside a beehive reach a certain level, it becomes time for the beekeeper to step in. But this intervention is arguably one of the most nerve-wracking farming tasks on Earth. A standard harvesting process requires the beekeeper to gear up completely from head to toe. Not a single patch of skin can be exposed, because what they are about to face are hundreds of thousands of bees defending their home. Even though each bee is no larger than a fingernail, once provoked, their collective power is enough to kill an adult human. And even full protective gear cannot guarantee absolute safety. During honey collection, beekeepers usually gently spray a thin stream of white smoke into the hive. This smoke is not meant to drive the bees away. It is meant to deceive them. When bees smell the smoke, they instinctively assume the hive is on fire. So they begin frantically consuming honey to prepare for an emergency escape. Once their honey stomachs are filled to the brim, their abdomens become too stiff to bend properly, making them far less able to sting. So the next time you see a beekeeper using smoke on a hive, don't assume it's some mysterious ritual. It's actually a kind of mass sedation for tens of thousands of fully armed bees. After that, the beekeeper uses specialized tools to carefully pry out the honeycomb frames one by one. These wooden frames are neatly filled with hexagonal cells, packed with golden honey. Once the frames are removed, a soft brush is used to gently sweep away any remaining bees clinging to the comb, preventing them from being crushed or injured. Once all the honeycomb frames have been removed, they are neatly stacked into specially designed wooden crates. These crates are immediately loaded onto trucks and transported to processing facilities. This step has to be done extremely quickly because honey gradually thickens at room temperature. If the temperature drops too low, its viscosity increases sharply, making it much harder to process later. When the crates filled with honey frames arrive at the factory, the industrial process officially begins. The poetic scenery of the countryside disappears completely, replaced by steel conveyor belts and synchronized machinery. The first step is uncapping. After bees fill each cell with honey, they seal it with a thin layer of beeswax, essentially placing a lid over every compartment. This is their natural preservation system, allowing honey to stay unspoiled inside the comb for years. But this wax seal is also the first obstacle for the factory because it prevents the honey from flowing out. So a specialized uncapping machine is used. The frames are placed onto a sliding track, and blades pass over both sides of the comb at the same time. With rapid, high-speed oscillation, sharp metal blades precisely shave off the wax caps. This step requires extreme precision. If the cut goes too deep, it damages the structural integrity of the comb, making it unusable for future cycles. If it's too shallow, the wax won't be fully removed and the honey won't flow out properly. The entire process takes just about 1 minute per frame. Once the wax caps are removed, they are sent into a recovery system. Because beeswax itself is a highly valuable byproduct used in candles, cosmetics, and industrial coatings. After the wax caps are removed, the honeycomb frames are still far from releasing their honey. Next, the frames are loaded one by one into a large cylindrical machine. This machine works on a principle similar to a washing machine. It spins at high speed, and under the force of centrifugal acceleration, the honey inside the cells is violently flung outward. The honey then runs down the inner walls and collects at the bottom, where it is funneled through pipes into storage tanks. The entire process is essentially like the spin cycle of a washing machine, extracting every last drop of honey from the comb. After passing through the extractor, the honeycomb frames are completely emptied. These hollowed-out frames are then collected, cleaned, and returned to the beekeepers so the bees can refill them again. It is a never-ending cycle. The bees have just handed over all the honey in their hive, and now they must start storing it all over again. A true insect version of the working-class cycle. However, the honey flowing out of the extractor is not yet a finished product. It still contains impurities, such as wax fragments, pollen particles, and other debris. So the honey is immediately pumped into a multi-stage filtration system. This system typically contains several layers of filters, arranged from coarse to fine. The coarse filter removes large wax particles first, while the finer filters then remove microscopic particles that are almost invisible to the naked eye. What comes out is pure, flawless liquid gold, honey in its most pristine golden form. But even after filtration, the honey still cannot be bottled immediately. There is a crucial step here that many people don't know about: resting. Freshly filtered honey still contains a large number of air bubbles and microscopic gas particles. If these bubbles are sealed directly inside jars, the honey will appear cloudy and lose its visual clarity. So the factory first stores the honey in massive stainless steel tanks, keeping it at a carefully controlled optimal temperature. Then it is left to rest quietly for 2 to 3 days. During this time, the trapped air bubbles slowly rise to the surface and escape. At the same time, the honey naturally becomes thicker and more stable. It gradually reaches its ideal state: golden, viscous, and crystal clear. This process cannot be sped up with heating. It cannot be accelerated with machines. It can only be left to time. Once the resting process is complete, the final stage begins: bottling. Sterilized glass jars travel along a conveyor belt, one after another, entering the filling station. Each jar is precisely aligned with a filling nozzle. The machine dispenses an exact measured amount of honey based on preset weight. The nozzle design is highly specialized. Because honey is far more viscous than water, ordinary filling nozzles would clog within hours, or cause messy splashing during operation. Professional honey filling nozzles are therefore optimized through fluid dynamics. They achieve precise dosing with zero dripping and zero splashing. Once the bottling is complete, the jars are automatically carried by conveyor belt to the next station, where the lids are applied. The entire process is seamless. The next step is labeling. Each label is printed with key information such as production date, expiration date, origin, and ingredient list. Finally, the finished products are packed into cartons and shipped by the truckload to supermarket shelves around the world. But honey doesn't only come in large jars. Inside the factory, there is also a more playful product: honey spoons. This is a relatively new innovation. Honey is first poured into spoon-shaped molds made of plastic or silicone, then sealed with foil or thin film packaging. All you have to do is tear it open, and the honey is ready to eat directly from the spoon. It's a thoughtful design, especially convenient for takeaway use or for adding into coffee. For office workers, it's extremely practical. Just keep it in your bag, and you can make honey water anytime, anywhere. But do you think honey is all the same? That would be a big mistake. In reality, there may be thousands of different flavors of honey around the world. And the most important factor determining its taste, color, and price is not the factory nor the beekeeper, but the flower that the bees choose to visit. Bees are extremely loyal flower thieves. Once a worker bee discovers a field of blossoms, it will keep flying back and forth within that same area until all the nectar there has been completely collected. Because of this, the honey inside a single hive often carries the soul of a specific type of flower. Take New Zealand's famous Manuka honey, for example. Its nectar comes from a shrub called Manuka. Since this plant only grows in New Zealand and parts of Australia, Manuka honey has been pushed to extremely high prices on the global market. A small jar can easily sell for over $100. Another example is Himalayan cliff honey. It comes from high-altitude wild plants. Because it contains trace amounts of natural psychoactive compounds, locals refer to it as mad honey. In small doses, it is said to have energizing effects, but in larger amounts, it may cause various adverse reactions. Then there is clover honey from the pampas grasslands of Argentina, light in color with a clean, delicate sweetness. Honeydew honey from Spain's oak forests is almost dark enough to appear black, with a deep woody aroma. In China, varieties like Vitex honey, linden honey, and rapeseed honey each have their own distinct color, aroma, and flavor profile. In other words, when you open a jar of honey, what you're smelling is not just floral sweetness. You are smelling a complete memory of geography, plants, and climate combined. That's why people who truly understand honey taste it the way sommeliers taste wine. From a single spoon of honey, they can detect the mountain the bees flew over, the sea of flowers they passed through, and even the sunlight of that season. Beyond its role as food, honey has another use that fascinates countless women: beauty and skincare. Honey is a natural humectant. Its molecules can attract and lock in water from the air, helping the skin stay hydrated, soft, and radiant when applied topically. That's why you'll often find honey listed in the ingredients of face masks, lip balms, and moisturizers. And with that, our sweet journey from hive to factory comes to an end. From the moment a worker bee discovers a field of flowers, to a queen bee hatching inside an incubation chamber, from the thin puff of smoke used by beekeepers to calm the hive, to the high-speed centrifuges spinning inside factories, and finally to the 2 to 3 days of quiet resting and settling. Everything ultimately condenses into the golden sweetness on your table. So the next time you open a jar of honey, take a moment to think. Inside this small bottle of golden liquid is the lifetime of tens of thousands of bees, the essence of thousands of flowers, and the hard work of beekeepers and factory workers behind the scenes. It's not just sugar. It's a sweet collaboration between nature and industry. After watching this episode, which type of honey would you most like to try? Chinese linden honey, New Zealand Manuka, or maybe another variety I didn't mention? Let me know your choice in the comments. This is Food Truth, where we take you deep into the secrets hidden behind everyday food. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and join us as we uncover the industrial wonders behind every bite.